Hello everybody, this is Detecting Daddy. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome back, more importantly, to World Coin Wednesday. Now, as you can tell, this is going to be on the country of Australia, and I've actually made this, or attempted to make this video a few times already, and for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened yet. However, I'm going to show you some of the coins that I have from the country of Australia, and also give you a little bit of the history on Australia, which actually dates back a lot further than I had ever imagined it did, and also some information on the important people in Australia's history, and some more information on their coins and mintages as well. Okay, for Australia, here goes some of the coins that I have. Oldest being 1951, and right here, as you can see, that is 50% silver. I'm not going to show you each one, but just kind of give you an idea of what the coins generally look like. They do have Queen Elizabeth on them, as they do. They are their own country, but they still have ties to England, I guess you could say. Long history with England, really. And the last one I'm going to show right here. Now, let's get into the history of Australia. In research in Australia, it is believed that the first inhabitants date back about 65,000 years ago. I have always heard a lot about the Aboriginal people, but I really didn't know much about what was called the Torres Strait Islander people, who were believed to be there before the Aboriginal. First, we're going to discuss the Torres Strait Islanders people. And actually, let me zoom out of this a little bit further. And all up in here, there we go. That's what I wanted to show you. The Torres Strait Island people have about 274 islands and are a statutory authority of the Australian government. Basically, a lot of these islands up in here is considered where they believe most of the Torres Strait Islanders peoples came from, as well as they believe they came from Papua New Guinea, or they have DNA that ties into Papua New Guinea, Taiwan, and as well as China. The Aboriginal people believed to have arrived about 15,000 years after the Torres Strait Islanders people. Also pretty much come from very similar areas, but their DNA strands are completely different. They've actually been tested in this for a while now, and there are two different peoples from that. So that finding out all that information actually was a lot more research than it was for the minute and a half that maybe I talked about it. But still, very exciting to find out that if you figure dating all the way back from China all the way down here through many of these islands, that for thousands of years people already are going to Australia way before modern times, shall we say. Okay, the research that I've come up to all states that this gentleman here, William Janszoon, Dutch explorer, first discovered what is now Australia back in 1606. 10 years later, this gentleman, Dirk Hartog, also started visiting and mapping Australia as well. Originally, explorers thought that due to the dry land, that no crops could be grown here, and that nobody could possibly live there. Another Dutch explorer that went to the new land was Abel Tasman, who was working for the Dutch East Indies Company. Had reached Tasmania, which he called Anthony van Diemenstadt, and then called the continent New Holland, and that's where it originally got its first name, and that was dating back to 1642. This is one of the earliest maps I could find of what was then New Holland, which I believe dates back to 1767. This gentleman here was actually the first Englishman to land in was then New Holland, and that was in 1688. And he actually had quite a resume as a pirate, privateer, and the first person to circle the world 3 times. This gentleman here, Captain James Cook, had in 1770 found the fertile east coast of what was then New Holland, and called it New South Wales, and claimed it for England. And shortly after that, in 1788, England started using Australia as many people are very familiar with as a prison colony. As a prison colony, their most famous prisoner was Ned Kelly, which in a lot of ways correlates to our own Jesse James. There was a lot of stories as far as what he did do and what he didn't do, or what he might have done. And he's also considered the country's first novelist. But that is also disputed. Some saying he dictated it and somebody else wrote it down, or some people saying he wrote it and others edited it after the fact. And that's actually called The Chronicles of Ned Kelly and His Gang from 1870 to 1880. Now, as we're starting to get into more modern times, shall we say, with Australia, the first coins weren't actually shipped to Australia until around 1813. And that's when the British government decided to send 40,000 Spanish silver coins, which at the time the governor had asked a convicted convict who was convicted of a felony for forgery to cut holes in the silver coins and to restamp them. Let me show you what those look like. This here is one of the best pictures I can find online of this here. Now, the interesting is this is called the Holy Dollar. The middle of it was also used and stamped with New South Wales and was called a dump. Let me see if I can find one of those real quickly. Here is one here. It doesn't look like much, but it's what they have pictured as what was called a dump, and these would have been stamped, as I said, New South Wales. Another significant date in Australian history is 15 February of 1823. This is when gold was discovered. And the surveyor actually did a great job of writing the date down and exact location and marking a tree near where he actually found the gold. Pretty fascinating part of the story, if you ask me. And here where is online can get confusing, because this states that the first gold discovery in Australia was in Victoria, not New South Wales, and it wasn't until 1849. And of course, this is why the mint in Australia was first built, and that was exclusively for gold coins, much like the DeLonga Mint here in the US. I'm kind of reading a little bit off of this page, as it is about specifically coinage from Australia. And it was in 1855 that a British Royal Mint was opened in Sydney. Again, still under the Crown, it was not Australia as of yet, as we know it today. Research. Two different articles tell me two different things. Australia gained independence in January 1st of 1901, but then it says in 1986. Technically, they became a federation of Great Britain, so they were, but they were not a sovereign nation. But the Australia Acts of 1986, passed by both British and the Australian parliaments, definitely made Australia a free and sovereign nation, no longer under the Crown. So there's two conflicting dates, but if you read deeper into the story and do more research, you're actually able to find these things out. Getting back into the coin side of things here, it was in 1910 that the British Parliament had authorized Australia to actually mint its own coins. And it was based off of the British pound system, pounds, shillings, and pence. In 1963, the Australian government announced it was going to convert to a decimal currency, much like the United States uses now, and that they had picked one designer, Stuart Devon, and he was given 6 months to complete his work on all of the coins. Now, unlike the US, they do have a 1 cent, 2 cent, 5 cent, 10 cent, but a 20 cent and a 50 cent. Years later, in 84, the $1 bill was replaced with the $1 coin because the paper kept on wearing out. Additionally, 4 years later, the $2 coin was introduced and the $2 note was replaced. Everybody might have been surprised that in 2012 that Canada did it with their penny, but actually it was 1992 that Australia was the first to take out the 1 cent and 2 cent out of circulation because the worth had dropped and they were too expensive to make. I wonder if the US is ever going to do that. Well, that is it on this video. I didn't get into too much politics like I did before. Tried to concentrate more on coins, as that is what we're actually here for. I do enjoy history, but I do enjoy coins as well, and that's what I really want to focus more on. Please let me know how much you like this video. Any comments, suggestions down below. Like and subscribe. And until next time, happy hunting.